Welcome to Bonnie's Beat. I'm your host, Bonnie Squires. We're coming to you from Radnor Studio 21 in beautiful downtown Wayne. We like to showcase people who are doing important things in the community, whether it's charity, academia, sports, major political events, political leaders. And today, we're going to talk about something that people are not that familiar with, but it's becoming more and more important to understand, to diagnose, and to work towards a cure. We're talking about celiac disease. And our guest today is Kimberly Yost Moyer, who was a development director for what is now called Beyond Celiac. And we're going to find out how the name evolved into Beyond Celiac, which is a very catchy name. It really is. Is it Kimberly or Kim?
Kimberly.
Kimberly. Okay. How did the Celiac da-da-da-da-da-da-da foundation shrink down to Beyond Celiac?
Well, exactly for that reason, no one could remember our name. So after, at our 10-year anniversary, which was in 2013, we took a step back and reevaluated and said, no one can ever remember our name. So we probably should do something about that. So we took about a year and worked with a consulting firm, We Communications, and they helped us pro bono and came up with some different ideas. And in the end, it was Beyond Celiac. And the reason why was because it really encompassed our vision, which was that we were going beyond just awareness. We were going towards a cure. We were going to living better and making sure that our community was living life to the fullest. So we felt that it really encompassed our mission.
We need to explain to people exactly what celiac disease is, because most people, you may have vaguely heard about it. You might have glimpsed the word in print somewhere, but if you would stop the man in the street, you would be hard-pressed to find people who could give you a definition, right?
Absolutely.
So tell us what celiac disease is. Is it considered a disease?
It is. It is a serious genetic autoimmune disease, and that means that anyone who is exposed to wheat, rye, or barley, which is gluten, will have an autoimmune reaction and causes inflammation in the body. And that can lead to...
Wheat, rye, or barley. That kind of eliminates all the foods that I love. I mean, I'm glad that I don't have it, because that means you can't eat pasta. Or is there gluten-free?
There's wonderful gluten-free pasta.
Okay.
Many different brands.
What about bread?
Lots of new and different gluten-free breads.
Crackers?
Yes.
And what else has gluten in it? Cereal.
Everything, even soy sauce.
Soy sauce has gluten in it?
It does. So you have to make sure that you read the labels and check to see if there's any wheat components, any barley components, or any rye components.
Wheat, barley, or rye. What about, well, I don't drink alcohol, but I think that whiskey has one of those.
It does. So most alcohol...
Is there gluten-free alcohol?
Most alcohols are gluten-free, except anything that is, some vodkas are wheat-based. They're except for like Tito's is a great brand because it is gluten-free. But some of the whiskeys are obviously rye-based. All wine is gluten-free.
Interesting.
So yeah, you just have to make sure you know what you're looking for and read labels that we tell everybody. Read the labels.
What are some of the symptoms of having celiac disease? How would somebody know that they have it?
Well, that's where it gets complicated. There's over 300 signs and symptoms of celiac disease.
300?
Yes.
But you get to pick and choose?
If only. And everyone really thinks it's a GI disorder, and it's not. It can be neurological.
Gastrointestinal.
Yes.
Oh.
So they assume that it's, it's just a stomach issue. And it can be, we have someone that we work with, it's her son only had joint issues. And so she herself had celiac disease, but thought that he had a completely unrelated condition until she went to her fourth doctor, who'd said, do you think he has celiac disease?
Isn't that interesting? Is it hereditary?
It is a genetic disorder, yes. It is passed on.
But does it skip a generation?
No.
Or you don't know?
You don't know. That is why we promote family testing.
Is it like 1 out of 4? I remember when I was in high school, I forget the name of the scientist that had sweet pea flowers and he had white ones and red ones, and when he cross-pollinated, you get like one white, one red, and two pinks. Is that what happens with
No, no. And for example, our founder and CEO, Alice Bast, she obviously has celiac disease, and she has two daughters. One daughter has the gene, the other daughter does not.
Oh, so she was tested.
She made sure her entire family was tested.
Where do you go for testing?
Your regular family doctor can run the blood test. It's a simple celiac panel. You just have to ask for it. It's like a $30 blood test. And her daughter, who carries the gene, makes sure she gets tested every year.
Are there preventive measures to prevent someone from having celiac disease?
No.
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 You got it, you're stuck with it.
Correct. And you can carry the gene and never have it trigger.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Yes. And they're not sure why. That's one of the things that we are researching. But it's usually some type of trauma, and that means it could be another illness that you come down with, or perhaps a divorce, or just an emotional trauma. They don't know.
Divorce is responsible for a lot of grief in the world. I never knew it was responsible for celiac disease.
It can be.
Okay. Now, do you yourself have celiac disease?
No, I have something called non-celiac gluten sensitivity. So there's no test for it. It's just that I exhibit all the symptoms of a celiac, but do not carry the gene.
What do you call a person who has the celiac disease?
We call them celiac.
They're called celiac.
Yes.
That's interesting. You got a terrific board of directors here.
We do.
And your chair, Wendy Wasick, lives in Villanova.
Yes.
So she's right in our viewing area, so that's nice. But Wendy was traveling today, so she couldn't be with us. But you've got some amazing people. I love it when I saw David Yadgaroff's name, because David, who runs KYW Radio, that's a nice person to have on your board of directors.
He's a wonderful person.
Yes.
He's been very generous.
Yeah. And it turns out his kid has celiac disease.
Yes, his youngest son, Daniel, has celiac disease and has really been such a great advocate for Beyond Celiac. Has no trouble telling people about what he's gone through. Has adjusted so wonderfully from being a small child with celiac disease and now a teenager, and is great to speak with other kids who are going through this difficult time.
Is there gluten-free pizza?
There is.
Because if you've got a teenager, you got to have pizza on the menu, right?
You do. And you know, it depends. You have to try different brands and see what you like, but there's even some pizzerias that can make it, but there's something called airborne contamination. So there's flour in the air, and if it's not gluten-free flour, it can contaminate your pizza. So you have to be very careful, because some people are very sensitive to cross-contamination.
Isn't that interesting? Oh my goodness, just if it's like floating?
Yes. And those are highly sensitive celiac. So Alice Bast, our founder, she's highly sensitive. So if she were to take a bite of a piece of pizza that was cross-contact with or cross-contamination, she would have an immediate autoimmune response.
And what is the response?
For her, specifically, it's different for everybody, but she gets numbness and tingling in her arms.
That's not pleasant. You think you're having a heart attack.
No, yeah, it's not good. But she knows right away.
Does anybody get a rash?
I get a rash. A lot of people, it's a symptom, yes. A lot of people get a rash. It takes a few hours, or it could take a few days. It depends.
Interesting. So, and you've got a lot of research going also.
We do.
You've got a list of top docs around the country.
Yes.
That are so how many people are affected with celiac disease in the country?
It's about 1% of the population.
That's a lot of people.
It is. It's up to 3 million. Unfortunately, of those that are diagnosed, we're only up to 17%, so 83% of the population that remains undiagnosed.
Are there medications that people can take to, to minimize reactions if by accident they're exposed to, the wheat, barley, rye?
No. The only cure right now is a gluten-free diet, 100% gluten-free. What we are working on with our doctors and clinicians is coming up with therapies. So a number of drug companies are working towards different types of therapies. so that by hopefully 2025 we will actually have a cure for celiac disease.
It just so happens that people will be seeing this on Monday, May 1st.
Yes.
And May is National Celiac Awareness Month. So we came right at the right time,
Perfect.
Kimberly, right at the right time. And let's find out something about Kimberly Yost Moyer. Moyer's your married name, right?
Correct.
How long are you married?
It'll be 9 years.
9 years. I got cheese in my refrigerator a lot older than the time that you've been married. Oh my God. Where did you go to school? Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to college? Give us a brief bio.
Okay, sure. I'm originally from South Jersey, Washington Township. I went to college at, it's now Philadelphia University, the old PCT&S. And long story short, through going to Philly U, I wound up in Paris for 2 years.
Oh, that's what I read about you. And I got very excited because parce que moi je parle français couramment. I studied French for 8 years, 4 years at Lower Merion High School, 4 years at the University of Pennsylvania, and I was a really good student. As a matter of fact, when in one of my as an undergraduate, they put me in graduate French courses.
Oh, wow.
I was good. I could read French novels, all the 19th century, Balzac, Flaubert. I would read them in French. I don't think I could read them today because, the passé simple, passé définitif. But I was very fluent in French, and if I heard somebody speaking French, I would run after them. And I found every time I went to Paris, if you speak French, you see a different person than the average American who gets annoyed. Why don't they speak English? Well, they don't have to speak English. They live in France.
Exactly.
They speak French. But I made so many friends because I speak French, and now I'm remarried. My husband's Tunisian, but his parents don't speak English, so we communicate in French.
Oh, that's lovely.
And that's how I met him, because he couldn't speak a word of English when he came here to go to university. And he looked French, so I asked him in French, "You want to share my umbrella? Me partager ma parapluie." And he answered in perfect Parisian French. And then I found out he was from Tunisian. Anyway, that's another story. But I love the French language. And the French were absolutely right. I had friends who were dumping French wine, and they said, it's freedom fries, not French fries, which is so stupid. I had a lot of arguments, and I wrote my column in the Mainline Times about that. And then it turns out the French were right, that we had no business doing what we did. Well, anyway. But France is back in our good graces.
Yes.
And unfortunately, they're partners with us now, having suffered from ISIS, the horrible massacre in Paris.
It was awful.
Unbelievable. I have a lot of French friends over there, and it was really shocking, scary, horrible. It's always a surprise to find there's so much hate in the world. Where does it come from? I don't know. But you've got a lot of love that you're doling out, because you're working on finding a cure and raising awareness about celiac disease. Now, the foundation is only, 10 years old, you said?
13 years old.
13 years old. That's pretty recent.
It is, and we have accomplished a lot in those 13 years.
And your headquarters is in Ambler.
Correct.
Although your president lives right around here, so that's nice.
Yeah,
And
our chair, yes.
And you've got a number of board members who are also around here. And what was interesting, when and Nancy Ginter handed me this wonderful packet of information, we saw the late Ed Snyder had been on your board for a long time, that he had celiac disease, which I never knew.
Ed was extremely generous and became very good friends and a mentor to Alice. And when Alice approached him...
Your founder.
Yes, our founder. He said, I will take a risk on you, Alice, and if you can secure an NIH grant, I will support you and I will join your board. And she got that grant.
National Institutes of Health.
Yes. And I don't think he expected her to do it, but she did it, and he joined the board and continued to be continues. The Snyder Foundation continues to support us, but he was so impressed with how much she accomplished. In the beginning, it was her and Nancy, just the two of them. And he could not believe how much every time.
Batman and Robin.
Right? Yeah, the two of them out there. And, she continued to build that foundation, every day. And he would always say, you are the only foundation I've ever worked with that every time you say you're going to do something, Alice, you do it.
Fantastic. Let's put on the screen the contact information. BeyondCeliac.org, 215-325-1306. That's 215-325-1306. And what do you need volunteers to do?
Well, we can always use volunteers to help us spread the word. Go to our website, beyondceliac.org. And for May, Celiac Awareness Month, we have a special page. It's beyondceliac.org /awareness month, hashtag 60 for celiac, and just take a minute and go on and look at our videos and learn more about celiac disease and share the information. There's a lot of people out there that are sick that you don't know are sick.
It's very interesting. Are there people in politics who have been diagnosed with celiac disease? Because that's always helpful, because you think about how when you had Betty Ford and she was honest enough to say the alcoholism or breast cancer, and that just puts a spotlight on a certain condition or disease and helps people raise money to cure it.
Yes.
Do your physicians who are working for a cure, do they know what causes it, first of all? That's the first thing you have to find out, right?
Well, what causes celiac disease, yes, it's the only autoimmune disease that has a known trigger, which is gluten. So it's the key to unlocking all of autoimmunity. And a lot of the other autoimmune diseases want to work with us because if they can figure out why gluten causes celiac disease, there's hope for other autoimmune diseases.
What are the other autoimmune diseases?
Oh, MS, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. The list is
a long
very long list.
A long list.
And when we did our research summit, the first research summit we ever did that began us on this journey towards a cure last year, the MS group came and worked with us, and then they partnered with someone else on a drug, and the drug is now something that is working for them. So by working with other autoimmune diseases, it's beneficial to everyone.
Now, Kimberly Yost Moyer, you went to Philadelphia University.
Yes.
What did you major in there?
Oh, that's so funny.
You ended up in France.
I did.
Did you major in French?
No, I started as a fashion major, but by my second year, I was an international business major. And the long story, how I got to Beyond Celiac is I went back to work there in the mid-2000s and was traveling to Latin America to visit donors because that's where the textiles were made for many years. And I got very ill in Brazil and was in a hospital. And when I came,
that's not a pleasant experience to be in a foreign country. Did you speak the language?
I did not.
Oh,
I
that's
did not.
The worst.
And luckily I was with someone who spoke Spanish, so there was a little bit of translation going on from Portuguese to Spanish to English. But when I came home, no one could tell me what was wrong with me. And I thought, if I'm going to be this sick, I'd like to do something good. And so I found, at the time, the National Foundation for Celiac Awareness, now Beyond Celiac, and I decided that this is what I wanted to do with my life.
You had been a development director before that.
Correct.
I
was at Muhlenberg College for a number of years.
Higher ed.
Yes, I was in higher ed most of my career. I was and then Philly U, and then Moravian, and then I worked for a couple of nonprofits, mental health, and the Hispanic community.
Okay. With a name like Kimberly Yost Moyer, I don't see any Latino in there. Is there? And you speak French fluently.
Yes.
Do you also speak Spanish?
I do not. I know about 10 phrases.
In Spanish, I think I can order chocolate ice cream in Spanish. That's about it.
I'm not very good.
But French, I can get. That's how I met my husband, because he didn't speak any English, and he looked French, and he answered in French, and history was made. What can I tell you? So does Beyond Celiac? So you got a grant from the National Institutes of Health. Is that a recurring grant? Does that happen every year?
No.
That was a
one-time grant to start up the organization.
Well, I guess you have to do fundraising all year round.
Yes.
So where do you look for funds?
95% of our contributed income comes from major donors. We have about 25% that comes from sponsors, so major food companies. We're now looking at pharmaceutical companies, and then some foundations, which we're expanding into.
When you say food companies, what are the best food companies that have been out front in creating gluten-free products, so that, because everybody can eat them, you don't have to be a celiac to eat gluten-free, correct? Because when I go to the supermarket, I mean, there's shelf after shelf after shelf that's labeled gluten-free. I wasn't sure what that meant. Now I know. It means it doesn't have wheat, barley, or rye.
Correct. Well, there's a lot of great companies that are following the strict protocols that the FDA ruled on. So it has to be, it's called under 20 parts per million. So they can't have any more gluten than 20 parts per million, which is minuscule.
Yes.
But there's just a lot of great companies that are out there that are following those protocols.
What's your favorite gluten-free food, if you're allowed to say?
That's a tough one. Char is making a new white bread. Char, and they're based in New Jersey, but they're an Italian company, and they have the best new white bread, which is really funny to say, but it's hard to find a really good white bread.
I guess so. Now, when you go to a restaurant, how do you know that they're giving you gluten-free products?
You don't. Now, we have a program that's called GREAT, and it's a training program for restaurants and universities that we advocate that restaurants take, and obviously universities take, so that they provide safe gluten-free food. But you never know. You can only ask and do your best to make sure that
And hope they're honest.
Yes.
Aramark is like the world's largest purveyor of food for universities. Do they have a division that makes gluten-free food?
No.
Have you talked to them about that?
Alice Bast has spoken to them many times.
Well, if one of our viewers out there works for Aramark, I'm going to talk to Joe Neubauer, although he's now the chairman. He's not involved day to day. But, I mean, if it's such a huge problem, then they should have a whole division that creates gluten-free menus.
Yes. And parents need to be worried about sending their children off to university. If they're paying for a food program, it's required, and their kids can't eat safely.
What about nursing homes? We have a lot of very fancy independent living nursing homes, assisted living facilities right around us. Do they have gluten-free menus?
They could accommodate them, but it's not something that we've even gotten to. We're still trying to just tackle the schools and universities. There's something called a 504 plan, which you can ask the school because it is considered a disability. And they are required to accommodate your child, but that doesn't mean they do.
Very interesting. Do you have kids yet?
I have a 22-year-old graduating from Temple next weekend, and an 18-year-old graduating in June from high school. They are my stepchildren.
Okay, I was going to say, you're married 9 years and you got a 22-year-old. I was a little surprised.
Yes. So, but there's, to taste a lot of the food products, there's a gluten-free expo May 21st, and vendors will be there. And
where's it going to be?
It will be in Oaks.
Oh, at the big convention center in Oaks?
Yes. And Alice Bast will actually be speaking at 11 a.m. So if you want to come
What's the date?
May 21st.
May 21st.
May 21st.
Okay, we'll remind people about that.
Yes, and it's on our website, and they can go and check that out.
Let's look at the website again. Website is
beyondceliac.org.
You can call for more information, 215-325-1306.
Yes.
Will they get Kimberly Yost Moyer on the phone?
They can if they ask for her, or extension 110. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, or they can ask for Nancy Ginter,
They
right?
can ask for Nancy Ginter.
What's Nancy's title?
She's Director of Administration.
Whatever that means, I don't know.
Nancy does it all.
She's in charge of everything.
Basically,
okay?
yes.
She's in charge of everything.
She is.
And it's funny, you've got a David Cohen, but it's not the David
It's not
L.
that,
Cohen.
no, it's not that one.
It's not the Comcast. Well, you could try.
Good.
It's always nice to have David L. Cohen, on your board. But you've got some very interesting people. I saw Joe Giacovini's name. He's the chairman of Dilworth Paxson.
Yes.
That's a very influential law firm. And, of course, David Yadgaroff is fabulous. And who else? And Dorothy Binswanger. You've got some very prominent names there. Now, what does Alice Bass do, or is beyond celiac, that fills all of her time?
That fills all of her time plus some. That woman works 24/7, and a lot of it has to do. Alice's story is a difficult story. She had a full-term stillbirth, a 2-pound baby.
Ouch.
And it took a long time for her to get diagnosed. And she is very passionate about what she does, and she doesn't want anyone to suffer what she suffered. So she is...
Do they blame celiac for that?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
Infertility
really?
is also a symptom of celiac disease. Undiagnosed celiac disease.
Undiagnosed.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, her 2-pound baby, Linnea, BB, is healthy, wonderful, out there working in the real world now. I mean, she's a beautiful girl, and that worked out just fine. But
does her daughter have celiac?
That daughter does not. It's her oldest daughter that has the gene.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, good for her. As a matter of fact, they were nice enough to bring along a public service announcement that they've created to raise awareness about celiac disease and what you need to know to prevent getting a bad reaction to the things that trigger celiac disease. So when we finish speaking, which will be in a couple of seconds, we're going to show you that PSA. So Kimberly Yost Moyer, thank you so much, and good luck with your continued efforts to raise awareness about this previously unknown genetic disease. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you for having me.